Hey everybody, it's your girl Tawana B with Not Your Normal Conversation. And today I'm here with one of my favorite people, Liz Miranda. She's pretty dope. And I think that everybody knows that. But more importantly, she's running for a big seat. And I brought her on today so she can tell us what she's running for, why. I know you guys all know Liz as a state representative, but I just learned something about her last week from my sister-in-law that I just would like to share really quickly. When I posted Liz on Facebook to let people know that I was going to be interviewing her, she texted me and asked me if I knew who you were. And I go, yeah, that's Liz, the person that got makeup on my shirt at the last event we were on.
Someone was before me.
Right. But more importantly, she said that you helped bury someone that is very close to not just me, but of course her family, because it was her mom and it's my daughter's grandmother. And she said that you sat down with them and wrote the obituary and you went through this whole process with them to help them in the moment. And I personally, for my daughter especially, because Grandma Pat was very close to Kayla, to say thank you for what you did for the family. You know, community work, a lot of people don't really know what's behind what you do. And I think that this might have been a situation that may have been behind the scenes, but not really behind the scenes, because again, God always brings things to light for a reason. And I wanted everybody, the viewers, to know. People may not be watching now, it's Mother's Day, but they'll go back and they'll watch this and they'll know that you do more in the community than just fight to change laws, but you also sit down at kitchen tables to help people plan for their families' funerals and wakes. And you don't just shake a lot of hands, you give a lot of hugs, and we appreciate you for that. So everybody, this is State Representative Liz Miranda. I tried not to cry, and I did a good job. I'm a crybaby,
girl.
Ask Rich Lean. She was at the event yesterday, and I tried my hardest to not cry and to just be in the moment. But I am very sensitive and love community and love to serve the community, as I see that you do. So we will get right into the interview itself. But more importantly, I would like for you to introduce yourself to those who are watching and will be watching later on. And happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Happy Mother's Day, and I just want to start off by saying one thank you, Tawana. It's a real honor to be on this podcast, to be with an everyday woman doing extraordinary things. And that's the way that I kind of look at myself and look at women like you. And so thank you. I also know that Mother's Day is hard for a lot of people. I'm not a mother yet, and I have a huge desire to be a mom, and I do a lot of work in maternal health and birthing justice and reproductive justice because of the experiences of not only myself as a Black woman growing up in Boston, but also the women in my life who have gone through a lot: pregnancy loss, losing children, homicide, losing partners, or having racist or other things happening to them while they're giving birth or through their pregnancies or through their reproductive journeys. And so today is a special day. We must celebrate. I have an amazing mother, and but we struggled a lot. And my story really begins there. I like to tell people that I have been a state representative for 3 years, 4 months, and 8 days. And I've counted every single one. But I've been a Black woman from Roxbury for 41 years. And that experience of growing up in the Dudley Triangle, which there are 2 movies and a book about, because we were literally the dumping ground of the city of Boston. And growing up in what was the poorest part of the city, which was this place where I like to say, like, everybody was here. Like, there was Cape Verdeans. My family came from Cape Verde. My mom was a single teen immigrant mom. She had me at 17 as a junior at Madison. Well, she got pregnant at 17, but had me at 18 as a junior at Madison Park High. Had to drop out of school, became a cook. She's still a cook today. And as you can see from my background, I didn't blur it, but I have created sort of a home office in my home. I bought my grandparents' home, which I loved so much, from
Wow.
my mom. And the room that I'm in right now is where my grandmother stayed and where my father stayed, and he passed
Mhm.
away 3 months ago. And so I like to do my work in a space when I'm surrounded by love. And I've lost 3 people very important to me in the
Yes.
last 4 years. And
Yes.
so although I'm an elected official and I work on things that are connected to my lived experience,
Mhm.
I like to remind people that it's not that drew me to politics, because if it was that, I would have never got into politics, because I didn't see
Right.
anybody who looked like me, who had a story
Absolutely.
like mine.
Mhm.
I actually think what makes me a great elected official is that I understand. I've struggled along with the people of this community.
Mhm.
I grew up in a space where before I went to college, I could have went any way, you
Right.
know? My
Right.
father was incarcerated, my brothers were incarcerated, everyone around me was having babies, and the crack epidemic hit our community hard. I
Did.
lived in an environmentally unjust community, and every day I struggled between being a good student and wanting to run away, and then this community organizer in me, this girl who like had these Dudley Street dreams, just wouldn't let me run away. Even when I went to college, people would tell you I worked 2 jobs, but
Right.
I came home often because I always wanted to be reminded that I should never forget where it came from. And so I'm here today really showing up as a person who's running for Senate to represent the 2nd Suffolk District, which is the Black seat in the Senate.
Right.
It was the first time in history that Blue Halav is together in one Senate seat. And whoever wins this race, and I hope it's me, will have to represent a community from Hyde Park to Fenway that is majority of color and the Blackest district in the state, dealing with things like I went through:
Right.
immigration issues,
Right.
housing issues, being survivors of homicide,
Right.
um, being people who live in environmentally unjust or ignored communities. So I'm here today to talk to you about what it's like to be sort of this hood girl whose rainbow wasn't enough, and
Right.
then go to school and come back to the neighborhood, become a community organizer and youth worker and a nonprofit leader, then run for office after her brother was killed in 2017. And Michael's loss really led me to want more. And this conversation today is about, what do you do when you know your community and your people and your family deserve more?
Right.
And do you step up or do you run?
Right.
And I think that I've shown time and time again that I've stepped up.
Right. And I agree with that. And, thank you for giving us a little background on who you are. I didn't expect anything less from you coming into this interview, honestly. But first, I have to just respond to something you said. You said you're not a mom yet. You actually are a community mother.
Thank you.
You have mothered people when they were at their worst, such as my sister-in-law and her family. And you did the peace walk today.
I did.
For mothers. And I know that you also go and visit the prisons. I want to let you know one thing as a formerly incarcerated woman. Okay. So do not cry, because I don't want to cry. I
I don't
think
have mascara on right now, so I feel really good. If I cry, it's not going to hurt me.
good. So I just want to thank you for visiting people who may not ever see a familiar face besides yours, someone that looks like you, someone that wants to love on them. So, in fact, you have some practice at being a mom already.
Thank
You have been in the community, and in fact, I spoke to Richleen yesterday, and it was great to have her at the event. I said,
Congratulations on a successful event. I want to show you
thank
some
you.
love.
I said that I wanted to humanize you, but I think that you do a great job of humanizing yourself. And a lot of people will see me wearing this sticker and they'll watch the video. Usually people won't come live, but then everybody swarms in after the interview and everyone's watching, right? Because now they have some peace. They don't see the comments, they don't see anything going on, and they'll notice that I'm wearing this sticker. And I want people to know before we start this interview, before we start this conversation, because this isn't an interview. I'm not going to fire off questions at you.
We're just going to have a sister chat. Okay, that's
Exactly.
great.
This is going to be a lot of love here. I'm wearing this because I want everybody who is in a position to vote to know that if you want to vote for Liz, that you should be wearing a tag like this. I will interview many people who are running for her seat and many others. And I would never tell anybody who I was voting for. I think a lot of times people fear the fact that they see me interviewing so many people that I may sway one way or the other, and that really shouldn't matter. My job is to bring people like you on this show to let the Black and brown community see who you are so that they cannot have one excuse to not go out to the polls and vote. That's it.
It's super important that you say that because,
Mhm.
when I ran in 2018, I didn't know how to run for office. I didn't even know how to write a bill.
Right,
And I kept saying no, but when you're called, and this is something that I have struggled with because not everyone's faith walk is the same. I grew up Catholic.
right,
When I was 16 years old, something really racist and classist happened in my Catholic church, and I decided to choose the people. I decided to choose my friends from Orchard Park instead of my church community because I felt that what they did was wrong.
right.
A lot of times, shout out to Pastor Bishop Borders. Actually, I am
Mhm,
a new member. Well, I've come 2 times. I've become member of Morning Star, and I did it about 10 years ago, and then I rejoined 2 years ago,
mhm.
and have been really active because it's the one place that I found that I could be myself.
Right,
And for many of us, we want church to be a place that it does not condemn, but accepts us all. And everybody's a saint when it comes to everyone else's sins. And
right,
and I share a lot with people that, the reason why I go visit people in jails because 4 months ago, I was the only legislator with an incarcerated sibling. I've been visiting jails since I was a preteen.
right.
My father and my oldest brother were incarcerated, and the year I walked onto the campus of Wellesley, they both were deported.
Wow.
And it took me 18 years before I saw my father, my birth father, and my brother again. And then I would go visit my brother who was just released. And I had a brother who was killed. So I understand what it's like to be from a community where you feel like you're doing everything right, but God gives you things and things happen in your life that you just feel like you can't control.
Right,
When I was younger, those things made me feel ashamed, made me feel stigmatized. I often wouldn't tell
right,
people that I was working 2 jobs because my mom couldn't afford to pay for school. But I was also working 2 jobs during college because I had to send money. I
right,
had to send money
right.
to family who were deported, and I had to send money that old-fashioned way and send kites to my brother and people from my community that were incarcerated. And I just want to say to everybody, and look at you, right?
Right.
You just said this so nonchalantly as a formerly incarcerated woman.
Yeah,
I want to take a moment to share that you're not throwaway people. In
absolutely.
fact, some of the best minds that I've ever come across are people who made one mistake and were incarcerated because the way that we look at young Black people, particularly young Black poor people, or
Of
poor
course.
people, or people who are underdocumented or undocumented or immigrants, is that they don't deserve a second chance.
Mhm,
And none of us, and I'm sitting here as a very flawed woman, uh,
mhm.
but I like to think that people don't vote for me because I'm perfect.
Mm,
They vote for me because I work hard for their families, like I work hard for my own.
right,
And none of us are the worst thing we've ever done.
right.
None of us are the worst day of our lives. And
Absolutely.
also, none of us are the worst things that have happened to us. And
Yeah.
so I look at you and I see hope and promise. And just shout out to Stacey Borden with New Beginnings.
Yes.
That was a big battle in the community to share with our community why Black women needed to open up a space for other Black women returning back to society because it's not a safe place incarcerated, but it also isn't a safe place in the world for Black women, regardless of what level you're on. Many Black women will say when they come back, and I go visit, I think we have about 150 women now at
Mhm.
Birmingham.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, and there's about 6,000, a little bit under, in the entire DOC system.
Mhm.
And people like to think that we send people to jail just because they're bad people and they do violent things. But when you actually look at who's incarcerated, many of them are incarcerated for signs or crimes of survival. Some of
Mhm.
them were mentally ill or traumatized. Some of them were underhoused or unhoused. Some of them were addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
And all those things shouldn't land people in jail. We should land them in a place where they get help. But help doesn't really come. And, I really appreciate you wearing my sticker and voting for me. I often tell people that I want to earn their vote.
Of course.
I've worked really hard in the last 3 years, 4 months, and 8 days.
Of
I've,
course.
I've passed 5 bills in 3 years, which is a big deal for a freshman and sophomore legislator. But more important than that, I've taken the hood with me. There
Mm.
wasn't one bill that I worked on that wasn't co-written or co-conspired
Right.
um, by people who look like me and you, who are in community doing great work.
Absolutely. So, you said a lot there. And so now I guess we could jump into
Okay, let's go.
our sister girl talk, because you said some things that I kind of wanted to touch on. You gave us a lot of your background and why you're running this race. But you seem to, see, to me, politics, when I think of politics or politicians, I think of lawyers, liars, right? Most people do. I'm going to be an attorney. So, a lot of times you have to spend time kind of convincing that either the person that you're defending that you care about them, or the community that you really care about them. So you have to kind of put your foot on your own, kneel on your own neck, to remind yourself to stay focused and vigilant no matter what people think about politics or the reasons why you're running. Now, I said all of that because you said that you were led to politics because of the things that you saw in your community that were unnerving to you and unsettling. How many times, since you already answered the question that I was going to ask you, so I'm going to follow up with this. How many times did people close to you or somebody that you knew tell you that you couldn't do this?
I didn't get any of those "you couldn't do it." What I got was "you're crazy."
Mm,
Politics is a dirty game.
mm,
You're not a lawyer.
mm,
Um, do you even know how to write a bill?
right.
Or people who said, some people thought I was too black, and some people thought I wasn't black enough. So there was a lot of sort of intercultural racism.
Right.
Also, I look much younger than I am. So I'm
Mhm.
41. Black don't crack,
Ooh,
okay?
girl,
And
I'm hitting 47 next
no,
month. So,
if sis, you look great. And thank God we do not look what we've been through.
amen.
Okay.
Amen.
And a lot of people will use age against me.
Mhm.
My dad used to always say, "You're nobody's son," but people try to son you. In the hood, we talk about sunning you and checking you.
Right.
And what I realized was that I internalized some of that for a long time.
Mhm.
And I said,
Right.
no. I was asked about 7 to 10 times to run for this seat when it became open. And people
Mhm.
were like, "This is your neighborhood, Liz, Dudley Street. Like, you grew up in
Mhm.
this neighborhood your whole life. Like,
Right.
no one knows it better. Also, you're Cape Verdean, and 40% of this district is Cape Verdean, but you're
Yeah,
also a Black woman. And
absolutely.
you can represent everyone." And that's ultimately, I said yes to a young person who was the last person to ask me.
Mm.
And he said, "I think you should do this because I know you'll represent everybody." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what do you mean by that?" I was like, "You'll represent the person on the block who might be doing something he's not supposed to be doing, but if you can help him out of that situation, you'd also represent a white gay couple. You would represent a Black elder. You'd represent a Latino family who's undocumented. Like, you've had everything that you can imagine in your family and
Right.
community history." So I would say that there was a lot of that. Um,
Mhm.
if people thought I shouldn't do it, what they did was, some people supported other people that were running against me. I ran against 4 men.
Right.
Um, And, I didn't have the establishment with me. I didn't have the unions. I
Mm.
didn't have elected officials.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people thought I was going to lose. But like hood girls know how to do, we know how to fight and we know how
Right,
to work hard.
right.
And not only did I win, but I set a record. Over 10,000 people came out to vote. I broke Marie St. Flore's record
Wow.
of most voters in a primary after they told me my hood wouldn't vote in a primary after Labor Day. And
Mm.
I won every ward and every precinct. That meant that people from Four Corners and Fields Corner all the way to Dudley Street to Newmarket all believed that I could represent them. And so for those of you that are listening and you're going against a wall in your life and you have people who are naysayers, I just want you to know that a lot of times that is more about them and their
Right.
fears than
Mhm.
they are about you, because nothing is truly impossible. Look at you, you're out, you're doing great things. I grew up in the worst of circumstances and I went to Wellesley. I
Right.
graduated. Now I am a two-term elected official running to be a senator. So, God doesn't give anything to you you can't handle. And I really believe that.
I believe that also. I've been doing a lot of research on you.
Okay. Hope the tea is good. Okay.
I don't do tea. I don't sip tea because the tea sometimes is piping hot and people just hold their tongue and then they
Yeah.
can't talk anymore. So I don't do tea. But I did do some research on you. You can never sit with somebody and have a conversation with them without truly knowing who they are. And although we met at the event and we laughed and we did all of those different things, I think that I wanted to know a little bit more about you and your run for state senate and where you were at now as opposed to where you were when you started. And that's the reason why I just go through an interview and I just talk. But in this situation I had, Richland and I talked about it and she was like, maybe we could just form some questions and either we stick to the script or we don't. But it seems like we may not stick to the script too much.
Shout out to my team. They make me laugh because I have this young, diverse, local
Mhm.
team of people who are trying to make sure that I win. But they always write talking points, and I never stay to the script. And they always ask me, like, "Why the hell do you want me to write you
Right.
talking points?" I was like, "Because these things matter. And sometimes I forget
Right.
things that I want to share."
And it's okay to do that. But there's just some questions I want to ask you. And
Sure.
usually I have a very good memory. So usually I can just shoot them off. But I was like, I haven't. The last time I wrote down questions was when I interviewed Rachel Rollins. Long time
Shout
ago.
out to U.S. Attorney,
Yes.
my
That's
soror, my
yes.
friend, my
Yes.
raspberry
I
writer. Hey, Rachel.
Yes, I love her. And so our interview was very good. And she was so excited about it, kind of like you. And she was at the end, she was like, you made me so happy. This was great. And I'm like, good. I'm glad that I
We
didn't.
don't get to talk, we don't get to talk to enough real people from real community.
Yeah,
Oftentimes, even journalism is something that is male dominated, white dominated,
right,
more conservative and moderate. And so
right.
we don't always get a chance to talk about the things we want to.
Well, you don't have to worry about that, girl. Let it all hang out. Okay. So,
Okay.
yeah, in every story that I've read about you, there seems to be a theme of women and children. And you have a strong emphasis on those two groups of people in particular. And I just wanted to know why.
There's a couple of
That's the
reasons.
article.
It's
Even
you
if
know,
you're
that's
not asked, you
that's
say,
deep that you asked that. No one's ever asked me that. I
mm,
think there's a couple of reasons why.
mhm,
One, when my mom had me as a teenager, she was outcasted.
mm,
She was kicked out of the house.
mm,
We lived in shelter once. We lived at other auntie and family houses. And
right,
my entire life, up until I can remember like 15, 16, um, I felt her weight.
right,
Like, I know I love myself, but if my mom had been given another opportunity to maybe have finished school or not worked as a cook in the back of Boston's hotels, but had pursued her dreams, where would she be? Right.
right,
And she worked 16-hour days. I watched my mother get up at 3 a.m. every day of my life.
Mhm.
And she worked hard, and she was still humble,
Mhm.
kind, and
Mhm.
generous.
Mhm.
And those are the lessons that she taught me: how to be a good person, how to give even when you don't have a lot. And because she worked so much, I was raised by my grandmother and her sisters. They
Right.
were all very different.
Right.
My tia Isabel, tia Ida was mean. She had no children. She was the one who gave advice, and she was
Mhm.
very, very strict about how a woman was supposed to be. My
Right.
tia Natalia was the exact opposite. She was the baby,
Mhm.
and I stayed with her the most,
Right.
and she was carefree and charismatic, and she cooked for everyone. She took everybody in. The whole family would be upset because she'd have a different stranger
Mhm.
living in her house
Mhm.
every week, but she made sure that people had a home. And a lot of those people were women, single moms, and their children. And I
Right.
watched my mom, I watched my grandmother, her sisters always provide a home for those that needed it.
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons that I saw that. I also needed a hero at times. You know, a
Right.
lot of things happened to latchkey kids.
Right.
A lot of things happened on these back streets from Orchard Park to Dudley Street. You know, a lot of things happened in my public school, um, that there were times where I was looking for a hero or someone to talk to and I couldn't, you know, and I spent a lot of time in my life and already have as a youth worker. People poured into me.
Right.
I remember going to teen empowerment, the OP Teen Center, the
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Club, and the Y.
Mhm.
Um, I was a kid who was always involved in youth programs, not just because I wanted to, but
Mhm.
people don't realize that it was a job. I
Right.
needed to make money. I couldn't afford to buy school clothes. My mom couldn't afford to. So as at age 13, I lied on a job application. Sorry, mom. You know, to get a job because I
Right.
knew I had to start working. And I've worked 2 jobs ever since. This
Wow.
last year is probably the first year in my life that I just couldn't because the role of representative is so much.
Right.
I haven't worked 2 jobs. So I think my mother, the community mothers, the mentors, the youth organizations, shout out to Dr. Carolyn Crockett and the whole My Town family. My Town was probably one of those organizations
Mhm.
that will go down in history and changing lives. Also, counselor Ruth C. Louisiane. She's a former My Town alum.
Right.
Um, and then I just saw women of different kinds just struggling, making it, taking care of their families. And lastly, um, besides wanting a hero and thinking, you know, here I am, this Roxbury girlhood hero. Um, I mean, a girl whose hood rainbow wasn't enough. Like I always felt like no matter how hard I worked, there was always something bad happening around me. That in 2017, also when my brother was killed, um, my sister Christina lost her baby. And that's why I work so much in birthing justice and maternal health, because I watched her 21-week old child, Mila, be born, take her breast, and not make it.
Wow.
And I remember the night before, my sister was not feeling well. And she asked her doctor, should she come in? And they said
Mhm.
that she was just anxious and should take some Tylenol and go to sleep. And within a few hours, my sister went into early labor.
Wow.
Now, a lot of women don't ever get the opportunity to speak for themselves. A lot of children don't get the opportunity to say, I need something, or
Absolutely.
I'm valued, or I'm worthy, or I'm enough. And so I think I take my childhood experiences, my adulthood experiences, and pour it into my work, where I haven't forgotten the things that kept me up that night, the things that moved me, the things that still to this day. Because, you know, people like, I don't know what they think, what happens when you get a pin and, you know, you get this title, you're
Right.
honorable, that
Right.
somehow people think your life changes dramatically. And, you know, I'm here to tell you, I'm a real woman from a real community who's gone through some real things.
Right.
And the pin does not shield me. it doesn't shield me from walking into my home in Roxbury, walking the same streets I did when I was a kid, going
Mhm.
through the same family stuff a lot of people are going through. And I just hope that that thread of helping those that are been marginalized, which have really, now we're not minorities, but we've really been minoritized, you know what I mean?
Right, right.
And we're more than marginalized. We actually have been excluded. So I'm glad that you picked up on that. And thank you for asking me, because no one ever has. And on this Mother's Day,
Mhm.
um, for folks who are not mothers per se, like physically giving birth um, to children, there's still a role for you to play that's important to community.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason why we may read enough, but we don't read always to comprehend. And when that happens, we don't pick up what's being put down so that we can find understanding when we are in the voting stage or before we vote or even when we're at the polls. And so I did read a lot of articles
Thank
about
you.
you, and I picked up on this. It takes a village to raise a child, and
It
you would
does.
like to be a part of that village. And so I too believe in that. And maybe that's why I picked up on it, but I'm not certain if that's it. I think I'm just going to school to be an attorney. You're always reading, you always having to
Yeah.
understand and comprehend
And
things.
shouts out to you. I've always wanted to go to law school, but I'm a little tired. So I'm like, whoever wants to be an attorney, go ahead. We need more. You know that the legal field is the least diverse. I used to think it was medicine, but it's not. It is the
Mm,
legal field.
mm,
And just like government, if you don't have people who are representing different life stories or
right,
journeys,
right.
it's very hard to be the type of legal mind that can help our communities. So I'm really looking
Absolutely.
forward to your graduation, sis. I'll be there.
Thank you. And you're invited. Don't worry about that. I need you to scream real loud, girl. Don't make no mistake about this. When I walk across that stage at almost, 50, because I'm pushing 50, I need everybody to be standing up, proud. Even the people that don't know me. Hey, stand up. I need everybody standing up.
And I just saw you have a tattoo on your wrist, just like me.
I do. See, we
Hey.
have more in common than you actually know. It's a lot of different
It'll
things.
come out in time.
So, like some of the other strong Black women leaders, I've had the pleasure of encountering your stick to your guns when it comes to urban community issues. Now, is there any particular thing that is on your agenda to change once you take the seat for senator?
I just want to continue the work that I've done. I've passed 5 pieces of legislation. I've written a lot of bills on a
Mm-hmm.
few topics that I care a lot about: environmental justice,
Mm-hmm.
immigration and immigrant rights, mental health,
Yeah.
maternal health and birthing justice, and a lot on ending mass incarceration. Uh,
Hmm.
And I want to take a moment to share some startling facts with you, because up until 4 years ago, I thought Massachusetts was a very liberal place.
Right.
Um, and then George Floyd happened, and Breonna Taylor happened, and Ahmaud Arbery.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I heard those names, it took me back to Amadou Diallo, Sean Bell, Dean
Right.
Henry,
Right.
Sandra Bland.
Right.
And I could talk for an hour straight naming all the people that were killed at the hands of police across this country. So
Right.
I was a legislator looking around, um, and I particularly cared about use of force and ending no-knock warrants, ending chokeholds, creating a duty to intervene, ensuring that people, particularly in law enforcement, could learn how to de-escalate
Right.
situations. But when I looked around, um, it was one of those moments that God said, you're going to have to step up, Liz. You're going to have to, you don't know how to write a bill, but you're going to write a bill. And
Right.
I called it an act to save Black lives, because in the Journal of Massachusetts History, there will always be an act to save Black lives, which was literally on police accountability. Now, for my friends who are abolitionists, and we are many, um,
Right.
the bill wasn't enough, right? Because, you want to abolish systems that are meant to degrade and punish our communities. Our
Mhm.
communities are still over policed, we're over incarcerated, and we're still not safe. So the
Absolutely.
idea of pumping $1 billion into a system that jails us for the same crimes 8 times higher in Massachusetts. Let me say that again. Black people go to jail for the same crimes 8 times more than white people in this state. And that's a real problem because we only make about 20% to 25% of the population. In fact, the Black population might be close to 8%.
Right.
You know, the whole 20% includes Latinos and other ethnic minorities,
Right.
Ethnic cultures. And so for me, what I want to do in the Senate is, you know, there's 160 reps, there's 40 senators. Senators have a bigger geography, 4 times what I've been able to do in Roxbury and Dorchester for the entire Commonwealth. And just, I want people to understand that it's not just one issue. Working to end solitary confinement, which will happen, addressing issues with parole, juvenile justice, reentry. And my biggest bill, which probably is the most controversial, is ending life without parole. Now, a lot of people ask me, and this is important, why, as someone who's lost a sibling to gun violence, not want the harshest crime to stay on the books? And I tell them to just do math. So Massachusetts has about 6,000 people incarcerated in our DOC system. I don't know what's in our HOC system because I don't represent all these places, but let's just say there are about 12,000 to 15,000 people incarcerated in Massachusetts. And the reason why there's such a broad diversity is because we've been on a steep decline.
Right.
Massachusetts has been releasing a lot of people. And we're tied. We're tied with Louisiana with the largest population and percentage of people serving life without parole. So there's over 1,030 people. So 1,030 or 1,050 out of 6,000. So 1 in 5, 6 people in Massachusetts jails are serving life without parole. And not all of them had loss of life. Some of them are in a joint venture. Some of them were convicted of crimes when they were 15 to 22 as children. And they're paying for that for the rest of their life. I believe everyone deserves parole review. That doesn't mean they get released, but I think to incarcerate people until they die and not allow them to go through the programs and classes and initiatives that we say is about correcting behavior, about redemption, and not allow them to see the parole board, and then not allow them to see the parole board every year, and then not allow them to see a parole board that's more reflective of society. It has to have social workers, not just prosecutors, on there. This is what drives me at night. And so for my main issue, other than dealing with the fact that there's a racial wealth gap that has stifled our community, and essentially made us stay in communities that are racially and housing segregated and keeping us poor, and dealing with health equity because of social determinants of health, which is interconnected to that racial wealth gap, is literally killing us. Our zip codes are killing us. Ending mass incarceration in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for my brother, for my father, for you, for the people, for Miss Angie, for the people that did something and never got a chance to rectify that, to make peace with that. And for me, Massachusetts does have a problem. It has a problem in policing, and I'm glad that the bill got passed. And now we have more work to do together. And so for me, the Senate seems appropriate to move the needle along on all these issues because we're not done yet. You can pass a law and it takes years before it comes into play. And so I'm really hoping and looking forward to the chance to serve the people of the Second Suffolk by focusing on the issues that matter to us most. And I know, because I've born and raised here, I've lived here, I've worked here, I've played here, I've lost here, that if we don't end mass incarceration, the 25%, 20 to 25% that is Black and Latino, yet 70% that's incarcerated, will never have a chance to add value to the communities that they love.
And I believe that. And do you want to know something? You mentioned Miss Angie, who's a great friend of mine.
Hey, Miss
She
Angie.
actually was my roommate
And
the
she's gonna
first
be out hopefully soon.
she will be out, and she's lucky to and fortunate. She's lost a lot of lives being inside, her mom being one of them, but she's always stayed focused and stayed at the task on hand. And I have had many, we've had lots of cries and we've
Yeah.
had lots of talks, and she's had lots of things going on in her mind about if this law changes, what this means for me. But the one thing that Massachusetts strikes me as is the biggest hypocrite. And I'll tell you why. Because in the state of Massachusetts, there is no death penalty. When you give somebody life without parole, you
It
have
is a
just
death
given
penalty.
them the death penalty. So Massachusetts is the biggest hypocrite. You might as well let them electrocute us or whatever it is that you're trying to do, because you're killing us slowly, which is the same thing as saying to somebody, you now have a death sentence.
And that's the biggest, that's why it's so important. This morning, Tina Cherry, and I want to shout her out. I get to be her representative. She lost her son. She turned her pain into power. Like I believe I've turned my pain into power. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that she said this morning was that everything is political. We have to care about policies. And when Massachusetts ended the death penalty, many people celebrated. But
Mm,
look at us. We're not tied with Louisiana on anything.
right,
Louisiana is often at the bottom of every social index, and
right.
Massachusetts is often in the top 5 or top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look that we're tied at the same percentage, and this, let me just give you some numbers. So some people are listening and been like, well, I want the person who killed my son to go to jail forever and die too. And I can understand the pain and suffering, but I have always shared with my family that isn't really justice.
Right.
That family member of that other family suffers too. Their children suffer too. And if we're God people of Christian faith, the people of Catholic faith, I often share with people that we have to be better humans. We have
Right.
to understand that everyone deserves their day to talk to their maker. And we're
Absolutely.
not the judge and jury in that. We've created a system of crime and punishment and law and order that
Mm-hmm.
benefits a few and not many. But
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts is 3 times smaller than New York.
Mm-hmm.
In New York, there are only 333 people serving life without parole. So a state that's 3 times the size of Massachusetts has a third of the population in life without parole. Now, I'm gonna just go on a whim here and
Okay.
say that should make us think twice about the 1,057 or 1,030 something people that are serving life without parole. Why are we sentencing people? And a lot of people pay attention to the prisons, but where the real problem is, and if you haven't read that Harvard Law report last year on over sentencing by
Mm-hmm.
Harvard Law School that was commissioned by Justice Gant before his passing, God rest his soul, what a great man. We over sentence Black people to jail in Massachusetts, particularly juveniles. I
Mm-hmm.
think in juvenile cases, it's like particularly Black and brown kids,
Right.
6 times the rate of white kids for the same thing. And so if your dad isn't a lawyer or your mom isn't a judge, don't live in Wellesley or Dover, the chances of you getting a second chance are very slim. And so it's important that we focus on the criminality of our people and our children, because look at the population. If Boston is sending so many of its loved ones, mostly male, to prison, when you come out of jail, nothing is the same. The other thing that I've
Absolutely.
struggled with, and Tawana could talk about this, the mental health that you have to go through,
Absolutely.
intense therapy, the idea that you're coming back into families that may not know you anymore, or you have routines and behaviors that you adapted to because you were conditioned to do that while incarcerated.
Right.
The world has moved leaps and bounds since the 90s, and people are struggling in
Right.
community. And so I just shared to anybody because there have been some people who've said to me, you just want to free them all. Well, maybe, but I'm not trying to let out dangerous people. What I'm trying to do is create a system of justice where someone has the chance to redeem themselves.
And it's called rehabilitation, and a lot of people don't believe in that. And
Yes.
so I'm going to just touch on this. I am going to be a juvenile defense attorney for the very reason that you just spoke about. So every judge that's listening, because everybody seems to tune in after the podcast is over, be ready. I have money saved up for contempt of court and bail, because I'm never going to let my client just settle for anything. These kids that I represent, God willing, will never see the adult court system ever. You know, a lot of times the biggest challenge we face being on the other side is when your attorney walks in and you think they don't know anything about what you've been through. Well, I'm here to let you know I know everything about it. I know about every foster home, every group home, every mental hospital, everything, being exploited as a kid. I know about all of those things. And then I know about the adult prison system. So in fact, I know about it all, and I'm trying to keep them from every bit of that so they never
And just
see.
stay there for a moment.
Yeah.
We constantly send children to adult prisons.
Yeah.
And, you know, children are not in places with adults anywhere else in society, but somehow we've deemed it okay to send a 16 or 17 or 18-year-old. And I was a youth worker for a long time, and people don't realize young people's brains do not grow fully until they're in their mid to late 20s.
21 for men, their minds start developing.
There you go. And you have someone who is caught up in some hood beef, something happens, and it's their first offense, and you're sending a 17-year-old to Sousa Baranowski and expecting that there's going to be some restoration there. There isn't.
It's restoration for society. Come on, Liz. It's not about the people. It's not about even the people, the family's life that they affected. I, have a child who I'm in court with now, and I shared this with a couple of people, and for once, I'm sitting on the prosecutor's side, and I have to say this: the DA probably hates my guts, because I go in and say, excuse me, my daughter has somebody that loves her, and you will not ignore her. You will not tell her at the last minute that she has a court date. In fact, I advise you to call her a month before until something changes. If a date changes, you let her know. But I, as her mother, will continue to see you on every level, because if you want to know what works for her, if this is really about you fighting a case for a family, then make sure you talk to the person that it actually happened to. Don't do that. You have the wrong child to be doing that.
And they do, that they further criminalize particularly Black girls. And you mentioned a real important question and comment, is that particularly women, we really don't have a reason to build a new women's prison. We should have this moratorium and spend the $50 million taking care of the women that are there, many of whom are disabled or old. I went to visit them a month ago, and there were at least 5 women in wheelchairs, and most of the campus at Framingham is condemned. And we can do better with them. They have proven that they're not heinous criminals, and they're connected on a different way, because if they were mothering or pregnant or left a child behind, that weighs on them. Many of them have had irreversible impacts on their family dynamics that they can never repair. Because, like I said, my mom was working, but even if my mom was incarcerated, my dad was incarcerated. And even though he wasn't the greatest dad, it wasn't in my life, I yearned for him. I wanted him to take me to my games and pick me up. I wanted him to be at my graduations. I wanted him to be proud of me. But we create all these roadblocks in the way of children getting the love and support from parents who have been incarcerated. And we have so many, because 2/3 of the prison population in Massachusetts is Black and brown, although Black and brown people only make 1/5 of the state's population.
I was reading an article on you, as I keep saying, because I've been reading a lot.
You were reading, you're doing your due diligence. Yes.
I always have to do that when it comes to certain people who, let me just tell you, someone brought you to my attention when I first started my podcast 2 years ago. Attorney Anthony Ellison, shout out to you.
Hi, Tony.
He was the one that helped me start my podcast and believed in me enough I called him and asked him to do some homework with me. And he said, "Who, girl, don't be calling my phone asking me to help you. My son doesn't even do that. Get over there." He was like, "What's the question again?" After he tells me all that. And then I tell him, he goes, "No, go back and read the case study."
Yeah.
That was enough for me. I was like, I'm never calling him again. But more importantly, he spoke about you and the need to have you on this show to speak to the brown community. And at that point, you weren't even running for this seat.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like every article, they say that you're breaking down barriers, that you're poised to break down barriers, is what they used in the December 8, 2021 article about you. They said that you're poised is a big word to me. Not many people use it. They don't use it often. They don't use it for Black women. And I'm just stating facts, but they used it for you. And I want to know if your poised way of breaking down barriers is going to be something that you're going to do in this campaign to make it to the seat.
Yeah. First, I want to let people know that I'm ready. I'm experienced. I'm accomplished. I was sent to the State House in 2018 with a mandate to not only help to create policy change, but to bring money back to our community, to champion causes. And I, along with a few women, have elevated the cause of birthing justice and maternal health, particularly Black maternal health. I'm oftentimes one of the few brown people in the room when talking about the environment.
Right.
And people always ask me, like, climate change is such a far out thing. No, when you grow up in communities like ours, this is climate change work. This is racial justice work.
Right.
Because our communities are the ones that are polluted.
Right.
Our communities are the ones that are segregated, that were redlined, that there are not enough trees, and our sidewalks and our roads look like trash, and there's still empty lots, and Blue Hill Ave still has blight. That is an environmental justice issue. We see where COVID-19 happened.
Right.
So I think that I'm positioned and to break down the barriers, but I also think that the reason why folks have said that is that I'm a different type of elected official. And I know that my type matters, because when I ran 4 years ago, now that I see Rootsy, Tanya, Julia, Kendra, Brian, I see opportunity that wasn't there when I first ran.
Rachel, everybody, yes.
Every time you take a foot in your own courage and bravery, and you show people it can be done. One of my favorite quotes is, "Sometimes you're assigned mountains so you can show others they can be moved." And my life has been full of mountains. Okay. These last 4 years have not been easy. I've gone through harassment. I've been stalked. I've lost 3 people in my life that I love very much. I have a busy district.
Yes.
Went through COVID-19, which wasn't just public health. My grandmother died in the middle of COVID-19. Actually, in the beginning of COVID-19, she kept getting false negatives. She raised me. That was like my mom.
Right.
And so I had to work through loss time and time again. And so when people say I'm poised and positioned, they're saying that I am qualified, I am worthy, I'm enough, I belong. This district, the 2nd Suffolk, deserves a leader that isn't going to forget who they are or where they come from. Who's not going to just go to Beacon Hill and stay there, but be a grassroots person. And this is something my team and I go back and forth on all the time. I give out my cell phone number. I'm accessible. I'm responsive. People DM me. They inbox me. Sometimes they send someone to call me. Sometimes they yell at me across the street. And even some people come to my home. Now, coming to my home is a lot. But the point is that when people need me, I'm there.
Right.
And people in our community, whether they live on River Street, or if they live on Columbus Ave, or they live on Washington Street in Dorchester, they deserve leadership that sees them, that hears them, that understands, that says, I don't know if I could solve that problem for you, but I won't stop trying. I'll make sure to contact every person that has the authority and power to make a difference. And I'm going to Norfolk tomorrow. So this idea of visiting people who are incarcerated, they're in the care and custody of the Commonwealth.
Right.
They deserve legislators that don't just go when it's convenient or when there's a photo op, but go consistently to every one of our 15 facilities. And sis, it's a lot.
It is.
It's hours and hours of my time. But you know what? I've seen some people be released. I've been able to help people get jobs. And
Yes.
there's no better feeling than to know that I saw someone in 2018, 2019, and now they're free. That what we're doing is actually making a difference. That every time you write a letter to parole, that maybe you were the reason that someone was given another opportunity. And so I believe that the second Suffolk deserves me and I deserve the second Suffolk. And I'm going to work hard. We have 120 days to win this thing.
Yes.
And I am going to knock on thousands of doors. I'm going to make thousands of phone calls. I'll be at hundreds of events. And that's not going to be any different than what I've done in the last 3 years, 4 months, and 20 days. I just believe that we have so much more work to do together.
Absolutely. I agree with you on being at court proceedings and doing and seeing how things work. Sean Ellis is a great friend of mine. I consider him to be a brother. And the last part of his being free, really being free, was dismissing his gun charge. And Rachel Rollins, she comes through like a champ. She doesn't care who. She's just like Sean's attorney. She'll go against a whole bunch of people and say, now what? And I remember being on the call and I was sick to my stomach, and I knew U.S. District Attorney Rollins' position. I knew her position, right? I didn't know this judge, and I've been around a lot of judges in front of them, but I was nervous and my stomach was unsettled. I'm like, my God. So why I'm not listening, because I'm like, what is happening? So I text him, I go, did he just say no? What did he just say? He goes, calm down, sis, it's over. I'm like, oh my God. You become so involved in wanting people to win and wanting them to truly be free, that he's a person that I wanted more than anything in the world, to just have him to be free mentally and
And
emotionally.
just have a moment to
Yeah.
say this.
Yes.
A person gets sentenced at 19,
Yes.
spends 20 years of his life or more
22.
incarcerated.
Yes.
22. He missed his 20s, he missed his 30s, and all because of police and prosecutorial misconduct.
Yeah.
In this country, we value people differently.
Right.
Sean's life at 19 from Dorchester wasn't held to the same value as an officer or a prosecutor's
Right.
role. And that's why they were able to lie and send so many people to jail, is because they're believable.
Right.
Imagine the outcry if we sent a 19-year-old Sarah Smith from Pickatown, Lexington, to jail, or removed her access to any opportunity that she desires. We would not have let that happen. But we have done that time and time again in this country. And Massachusetts really has to look at itself, not just the scathing report on the Department of Justice on our mental health capacity and our lack of in our prisons.
Right.
Then we had a report on solitary confinement that said Massachusetts was wrong. Then we had a report by Harvard Law School that says we over-sentence Black people. Then we have trial for Sean Ellis that goes through these 3 officers and all that they did. Then we have so many people in the Exoneree Network that are just becoming free because of the New England Innocence Project. Shout out to them.
Yes.
And just to think about how many more are sitting behind a jail cell for something that they did not do, or to the degree. For example, if you do something wrong, you could have did the time, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, but sentenced to die
right
in jail due to prosecutorial and police misconduct. Like, we have a huge problem in this country. And Massachusetts, if I could leave with one thing, sis, we do have a problem here. And I want anyone who's at home thinking that their vote doesn't matter. You matter, absolutely. We have the juice in our communities to make anything happen.
Absolutely.
2018, when Rachel won, Nika won, Ayana won, and myself,
Mhm.
It was a historic night. But 2018 shouldn't have been the year where 4 Black women won, because Black women have been here forever. We've
That's
been here
right.
since 1637 to be exact. And Indigenous people were here thousands of years before that. And so if I could leave with one thing is like, learn about me, learn about my issues that I care about. See me in community, call me, text me if you have some questions about me or my race or my issues, but do not stay home. Do not stay home on September 6th when there's a primary to elect the next senator of the first really Black seat in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in a real way. There's been other seats. You know, we've had Senator Bill Owens, who just passed not
Right.
long ago, who was our first male senator, and then there was definitely other senators, 3 Black women actually, before whoever will win next. But that's not enough. It's not enough to elect one Black person every 10 years or every 20 years and
Right.
think that you've created representative government. It's not true.
It's kind of like hiring for a job. Well, we need to pick a couple of Black people to fit in here. That's, before we end, I really want to send my condolences to you and your family on the loss of your brother to gun violence back in 2018. And I know that his loss has fueled a lot in you in regards to gun violence and other things that are going on in the Black and Brown community. I must say that, it was a pleasure to run into you at the event. It was a pleasure to get to humanize you as a person and not just somebody that I may have seen on a flyer or something that someone said about you or all the articles that I read about you. Um, I think that it's really important for the Black and Brown community to really understand how human you are and how you have gone through this life dealing with everything that a lot of people in the community have dealt with. A father being in prison. My father was absent. My mother was a drug addict. I think that you can relate to, you're so relatable. And I think that those are the things that we need to look at. Not everyone wants to play politician. And
No.
so I do plan to interview everybody, even the ones that are running for the same seat as you, because I think it's important for us to decide for ourselves
Yes.
what is going to work for the community. It's not enough to just see somebody and say, oh, she looks Black, or oh, she's dark skinned, I'm going to vote for her. I need people to really be at the polls and know who they're voting for, why, and what they stand for.
And
You
you
know,
have 120 days to do it. And
yeah,
I commend everybody running for office. One of the things that is happening in this race is we all know each other, like when we have a open seat, often that happens. But I don't want people to stay home, because one of the things that people think is you wait until the November election. But in this case, September 6th is a very important date. You're voting for your next senator. And the person who wins this seat would not only be the Black man or woman senator of the 2nd Suffolk,
right,
that person is going to be the Black woman senator. And now, shout out to Senator Lydia Edwards, who is a Black woman who
right,
represents a very different community. And
right,
whoever will win will work in partnership with her.
right.
And Senator Adam Gomez, who's the first Latino man elected to the Senate. But the thing is that this will be the Blackest seat. And so every issue that is of concern to our community, this person's got to be leading on it. And it can't just be one issue. It's got to be all these issues at once. You can't talk about housing without talking about transportation. You can't
Absolutely.
talk about transportation without economic opportunity. You can't talk about economic opportunity without talking about health equity and food justice. And if we're talking about ending racism or trying to work in racial justice spaces, we can't not talk about ending mass incarceration. This is a Black and Brown issue. And so for me, I hope people will see my earnestness, will see my dedication, will see my love for my hood, my community. And I'm leading with love. And I hope that they will consider voting for me as the next senator.
So, a lot of people, since I started my podcast, have said, I could see you running for a seat. And I say, listen, hold your horses. Can I just practice some law first? I want to go here and find out what's over here. But again, I agree with you. Wherever God leads you, that's exactly where you're going to go. I've learned the hard way about being led on my own. I've been led through all the front doors and back doors that I'm going to be led through by myself. What I want to do is be led by the Spirit to go wherever God is going to take me. So if there's space for me, save a seat for me, because I'll be looking for you. And I honestly want to talk to you again before September. I want
And
to
just know that, like, there's a lot of roles, a calling on your life.
yeah.
You'll know. When I first ran, I made a promise to myself.
Mm.
If I didn't think I was the best person, or if I didn't think I would do the best job, I wasn't going to run. And the same thing for this seat. I questioned it for months, and
Right.
I asked God, I prayed, I asked my family. I was like, why me? Is it my time? And God said, go. No other person could represent the district in a way. You can represent everyone from every corner. And I've been an effective leader. And nobody wants to keep electing people that go to the state house and don't do anything.
Right.
We're meant to do things. We're meant to not only pass laws, but get money. And I brought millions of dollars into the community. But just know that whether you run for office or help someone win, that there is room at every level of the
Absolutely.
political process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd like to be a part of all of that. I always tell people, use me. Being a public servant, I feel like I was made to serve. I have a very hard time with people doing things for me, but I love to do things for community. I'm a person who has been through a lot, and I don't want to see other people go through those same injustices if they don't have to. Stay tuned for my book this summer. And I talk
Yes, author.
I know, right? So, I talk about just, the things that hindsight is 2020, and I'm taking you into a prison cell with me, not once, not twice, but 7 times. And each and every time I was talking to myself and saying, how did you get here? Oh, I know how you got here. If I can, share my experience, strength, and hope to stop somebody from being where I was once at, I will always do that. Sometimes people say you overshare. I said, no, there's no such thing as that if you're going to stop somebody.
It's okay.
From
And I've been through a lot in that too, Tawana. So I want to end here by saying
yes.
to you, because there's people that are going to listen.
Right.
It's okay to be transparent and vulnerable. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to make mistakes and apologize and move on.
Right.
I think we make it very hard for Black women to be seen as human.
Yep.
And our full selves, because we're not supposed to cry. We're just supposed to be strong. We're supposed to let everybody walk on our backs and stand on our shoulders. But we have to save ourselves.
Yeah.
And you don't have to ask for permission to save yourself. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to that book. And I'll go on the book tour with you, okay?
Oh, word, because you don't need no megaphone. So we got this. Liz, I love you. I thank you for joining Not Your Normal Conversation. I expect to see you again on the show right before elections. I want people to remember what you said. And I also want you to share what your journey's been like as you're trying to go forward and get people to vote for you. So remember, Black and brown people, get out to the polls and vote. And I thank you guys for joining us. This is your girl, Tawana B, with Not Your Normal Conversation, sitting with your girl, Liz Miranda. Liz, where can they find you if they want your website? Why don't you tell us what website is? What's your website?
Thank you for a great interview, sister. LizMiranda.com, LizMiranda.com. Liz for Boston on most social media. On Facebook is Liz Miranda for Senate, and at Rep Liz Miranda on IG. And I also, when you're there, you'll see my number, you'll see my email. Just reach out. I'd love to continue talking. Thank you all so much, and have a good night. Happy
Everybody
Mother's
have
Day.
a blessed night. Happy Mother's Day. I'll see you soon, Liz. Hugs and kisses to you. Thank you, my love. It was good seeing you.